A coalition joins efforts in Maryland to combat racial environmental inequities. It's just one of many ways since the nationwide protests that groups are trying to address systemic racism.
What I've found over the last 4 decades is that race is the most important factor in determining where locally unwanted land uses are located.
Dr. Bullard says poverty is not what determines where industrial sites are located. The distinguished professor from Texas Southern University has written numerous books on environmental racism.
I did a book in 1990 called Dumping in Dixie, Race, Class, and Environmental Quality. And in that book, I looked at where landfills, incinerators, chemical plants, solid waste facilities, toxic waste facilities, and found that it was not land values, it was not whether or not people had high concentration of poverty, it was race.
Yesterday, a coalition of Maryland organizations and community leaders sent a letter to Governor Larry Hogan. The letter cites what they say are failures by the Maryland Department of the Environment to address environmental justice issues.
I don't know that people generally understand that racism is not an individual thing all the time. Often enough, it's built within the system. And in this case, there are all kinds of outcomes all over the state that are unfair and particularly egregious, that burden communities that are particularly at risk, like communities of color.
Patuxent Riverkeeper Fred Tutman is concerned that the industrial pollution local communities of color face has contributed to high COVID-19 cases among minorities.
I think COVID has really illustrated that because of the death count. Frankly, Prince George's County is a hot spot. Ironically, I live on the border of two counties. The county next to me, Anne Arundel, has a far lower incidence rate than the next door county where I live, Prince George's County, which is a predominantly African-American county. So I think COVID brought to focus where people didn't really realize necessarily this was conceptually like, yeah, we know that this is a disparity issue, but COVID has really driven it home.
The group has provided a list of 23 solutions to the governor, including an environmental justice plan. The coalition is also calling for a permanent working group within the state's Environmental Justice and Sustainability Commission. The work group would study and mitigate the effect of cumulative pollution faced by low-income populations and communities of color.